Good evening, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. This is Rich again, back for your third and final video blog of the night for Tuesday, April 21st, 2015, around 8:12 p.m. in Berwick, Massachusetts. Sun's down. It's clearing up. We're supposed to have a good night. And tomorrow's supposed to be nice weather. Some news to report. Bruins captain Zdeno Chara broke his leg, but he should be ready by the start of training camp. I still miss the Bruins playing in the playoffs. And sad news to report in the world of professional wrestling. Longtime Southern wrestling wrestler and manager Ron Wright passed away. Ron Wright was famous for a stint in Smoky Mountain Wrestling as the manager of the Dirty White Boy Tony Anthony. He was confined to a wheelchair, sick man, but when Tony Anthony was being distracted by the referee, Ron Wright would get out of his wheelchair and beat up his opponent, Tony Anthony's opponent. So prayers to him. And that's about it on the news. My third and final video blog subject of the night is about my personality profile. Tonight's personality profile is the continuation series of WWE managers who led their men to WWE World titles. And I'm talking about the late great Grand Wizard of Wrestling, Ernie Roth. Ernie Roth was with the WWF for many, many years as a manager, and he wore a turban and sunglasses, and he managed a lot of men. Ernie was born and he grew up in Canton, Ohio. He started in the entertainment business as a radio DJ in Canton, Ohio. Eventually he became a weatherman for a local television station in Canton, Ohio. Then in the 60s, he became a wrestling announcer for some regional territories in the Midwest and stuff. And actually he became a manager for a while. He used the name of J. Wellington Ratcliffe and Mr. Clean and Armstrong K, but his first major break as a wrestling manager was in the Detroit territory, managing the original Sheik, and Ernie Roth used the character Abdullah Farouk, and he was like, he did all the talking for the Sheik. Abdullah Farouk was claimed he was from like the Middle East to handle the Sheik's business in America, but that was just a storyline. And Ernie Roth was the first major wrestling manager to never become a wrestler, because he was only about 5'6" and stuff, only weighed 150 pounds, but he interfered a lot, and some fans were chanting "Weasel, Weasel, Weasel." So he was the first wrestling manager to have that chant, Weasel. And Ernie Roth, Abdullah Farouk was such a great talker, and Sheik didn't know too much English. He also managed the Iron Sheik in that territory. And by 1972, Ernie Roth went from the Detroit territory to the WWF, the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. And he was rechristened the Grand Wizard of Wrestling. And for the next 11 years, the Grand Wizard of Wrestling was one of the most infamous managers in the world of professional wrestling. He, Captain Lou Albano, and Freddie Brashley were the evil trio of heel managers in the WWE. The first man that the Grand Wizard of Wrestling managed in the WWE was Beautiful Bobby, but it wasn't Beautiful Bobby, it was Beautiful Bobby Harmon, who was not too much of a mid-card wrestler. Then the Grand Wizard of Wrestling managed Jimmy Valiant. His first major wrestlers he's managed to gold were the Tag Team Champions Professional Tour Tanaka and Mr. Fuji to 2 WWF Tag Team Championships in the early 70s. And the Grand Wizard of Wrestling managed Stan the Man Stasiak to the WWF title, beating the Pedro Morales in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on December 1st, 1973, but it was only a 9-day reign. Then Stan the Man Stasiak dropped it to Bruno Sammartino. over the years, the Grand Wizard of Wrestling managed such men as Kowalski and Don Leo Jonathan, Bugsy McGraw, Billy Duncombe, and Superstar Billy Graham, Bruiser Brody, so many others. And the Grand Wizard of Wrestling had a very good talking skills. He was one of the best talkers in the business, and he would always kind of badmouth Vince McMahon Jr. and stuff on the telecast and stuff. Behind the scenes, the Grand Wizard of Wrestling, Ernie Roth, had a lot of backstage duties for the WWE. He wrote promotions for WWF. Also, he handled advertisement, and he handled fan mail for all the professional wrestlers in the WWF circuit. In 1977, the Grand Wizard of Wrestling managed Superstar Billy Graham to the WWF title, and that got him Manager of the Year for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and it was a 9-month reign for Superstar Billy Graham. It was the longest running heel champion in WWF history up to that point. Also, the Grand Wizard of Wrestling continued to manage wrestlers like Jerry Blackwell and the Golden Grahams. He managed Luke Graham, the Mass Destroyer, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Pat Patterson, which he led to the North American Championship, which was rechristened the Intercontinental Championship. Then, like, the Grand Wizard sold the contract of Pat Patterson to Captain Lou Albano for $100,000 because the Grand Wizard of Wrestling was having cash flow problems, and then Pat Patterson didn't want to be associated with Albano and turns face. And then the Grand Wizard of Wrestling manages Ken Patera to the Intercontinental title, beating up Pat Patterson, which 35 years ago today, Ken Patera won the Intercontinental title over Pat Patterson at Madison Square Garden. Then he managed Sergeant Slaughter, and also the Magnificent Morocco to the WWF Intercontinental title. He also managed Cowboy Bob Orton, Playboy Betty Rose. He managed the return of Superstar Billy Graham, but he was in his kung fu mode, which wasn't good. And he also managed to return Sergeant Slaughter in the early 80s, and also the Masked Superstar. But tragically, the Grand Wizard of Wrestling, Ernie Roth, passed away very young on October 12, 1983, of a heart attack. He was only 56 years old, and before he passed away, they were trying him as a announcer, a heel commentator, and stuff like that. Had the Grand Wizard of Wrestling lived on, he was slated to manage Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, Rowdy Piper, and Dr. D. David Schultz, who were coming into the WWF around 1984 or not. And when the WWF was going to be expanding nationwide, they probably would have had to drop the Grand Wizard of Wrestling gimmick, because if they traveled all over the world, even in, like, the southern United States, that's kind of offensive with saying the Grand Wizard, because that's associated with like a racist group, which I'm not going to talk about that, so they would have probably had to change his name. But like the Grand Wizard of Wrestling was posthumously won the 1983 Editors Award, and also in 1995 he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame posthumously. And the Grand Wizard of Wrestling Ernie Roth was probably one of the greatest professional wrestling managers of all time. He probably ranks up in the top 10 and stuff like that. He was a very good talker and stuff as well. And if he did not pass away, he probably would have been used as like a heel commentator when the WWE expanded in the 80s and stuff like that. They probably wouldn't have gotten either Bobby the Brain Heenan from the AWA and stuff like that. And that's about it on the Grand Wizard of Wrestling, Ernie Roth. Hope you enjoy these video blogs. I love doing them. Tomorrow you're gonna get 3 more of these. I do 3 of them a day at least, maybe a special one, 4th one if it warrants it. First video blog tomorrow is going to be about some tips to help you go green, because tomorrow's Earth Day. Some tips you should take to help the earth out a lot and go green, because everybody's going green. I love to go green. I can't mention what the tips are because I don't want to spoil things. And also, the second video blog will be about the classic game show Password Plus and Super Password, which are both, like, you know, similar in game, similar to how they were played. And the third and final video blog of the night will be about the continuation series of personality profiles of professional WWE managers who led them into gold. The one I'm not going to talk about tomorrow is Classy Freddie Blassie, the Hollywood Fred Larson plays You Pencil Neck Geek. And coming soon to these video blogs, more and more of great stuff. I have a whole lined up for them, up and up. May's going to be a good sweeps month here, because I'm going to tell you lots of stuff. Some of them are very stories and other stuff, and it's going to be big. And guess what's going to come in June? Video blogs of guests. I'm going to talk to guests, have a kind of a podcast and stuff, and I'm trying to shoot big for guests. I'm talking about Dr. Thomas Sharkey, Ted Sarandis, good old J.R., Michelle Beadle, Heidi Pratt, Julie Broughton, Heidi Watney, and so many others. It's going to be great. I hope I can get them all. Don't forget, follow me at Twitter, at chewy7.com. And if you want to Skype me, we could have a Skype chat. Any questions, comments, concerns, PM me, and I will get to it. Any plugs or shout outs, I'll shout it out to you. Good night. See you tomorrow. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Bye.